Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be here and so grateful that Vikas asked me to moderate this conversation, and so great to meet you, Doug. You know, Vikas and I met, as most people do these days, through social media, and we've somehow became friendly and started talking, and I'm just so happy that I've gotten to know him a bit, and so happy to be here tonight. And interestingly, this is how the genesis of this film came to be, through social media. Can you talk about how you were able to learn of this story?
Somebody tweeted in 2008 that we have an unusual student in the classroom, 96-year-old woman. She joined first grade of my kids. I'm like, I didn't understand. So I was shooting MasterChef that time. I flew to Chepad. I met Amma that time, and I was blown away. But I wasn't sure, how far would this go? Is it just one time, or would it be passion? And then she stood first. I kept going back and forth. It's been almost 4 years we've been capturing her journey from 96 to her birthday, just a few weeks back, 100th birthday.
It's just an amazing film, and so tell us a little bit. I mean, visually, it's so stunning. A little bit about the process, about what it was like behind the scenes, and how challenging this film was to create.
So when the teacher introduction shot is with the lamps, so Jay was shooting with me. Jay Shetty is right here. He's the executive producer, and I told Jay, there's a temple nearby. Can you go and borrow those big lamps they have? And those guys were, okay, just give it back to us. So everything was done extempore, but that shot, I did not name the movie. I was always calling the movie Karthiani Amma. But that shot when she's going for the exam and she's walking, I'm behind the camera. I have tears coming out of my eyes. I said, look at her. It's like an empress going to fight in a battlefield. And that is where the name Barefoot Empress came from. And I think the entire process was very organic, because sometimes we'll go to school, we'll see her, and she hated mathematics. So you see, she was like a little kid. She had favorite subjects, and so it was so beautiful, because when she met me, we could not communicate. We don't speak the same language, but she asked me what my name was, and she wrote it in her language, in Malayalam. I still have it. Like, that's the greatest gift she could give me after all these years of suffering and being totally dismissed. And she knew how to write, and that's the best gift she. And like, every time knowing about her, being around her presence, and it motivated me that this deserves. We had a lot of more footage, but 15-minute movie just to make people feel what it is to be a Karthiani Amma for that moment of victory.
She seemed really comfortable on camera, and obviously you had tons of footage, I think, probably, when all was said and done. How did was it just this connection the two of you had that made her comfortable? Because you were with her in her home, I believe
bedroom.
And as she woke up, you were with her in her bedroom. You saw her waking up before her final exam. So obviously you all had this strong bond that made her trust you. But was that difficult to do, or was it instantaneous?
Initially there was a language barrier, but people would not know that I got educated in hotel management. I learned cooking in South India, so I have some information about the language. But I thought that after some time we didn't need to hear what she was saying. And she continuously keeps blessing you in her native language, and you feel your heart is full. There's somebody so sacred, it's like presence of God. Like literally just being around her. And after some time, we really clicked. I think that she knew it, that I saw my grandmom in her. My grandmoms were uneducated, like many of Indians of my generation, their grandmoms were. And I felt that, they never stood up for this. They never stood up. They never they never wrote their own destiny in their own hands. But when I saw her, I think there was so much of admiration for her that she felt it. That every time I'll go, I'll touch her feet, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so fortunate that she is there to guide us. And in the way she guides us about religion, I think it's one of the greatest things I ever heard about religion. That she says that you can't stop God from coming to me. And for me, that was like the closing part of the movie, that God is everywhere. You can find new rules and find new ways to control women, but God comes to them regardless, and he's always welcome. I thought everything about her was sacred. It was like I'm reading a holy book for a woman who was so broken by this crisis about the women's treatment. And I do feel, Katie, and I know three of us will agree on this, that most of us, that the greatest art comes from totally crushed hearts. Some of the greatest work we do, we want to move away from the reality of that pain and we put it into something so creative and artistic. And for me, that was Amma. And for me, it is Barefoot Empress. I'm just trying to distract myself from what happened to me in the last 2 years. I'm just focusing that I need to glorify her story. And I'm lucky to have this amazing man with me. This is amazing that there was so much of support for her, you know.
Well, that's good segue to Doug. So Doug, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how the two of you connected on this project.
Yeah, well, you know, I have a background in films that have a social impact initiative to them. So, you know, one of the many reasons this film appealed to me right off the bat. But again, as far as us connecting was another social media connection, just to tie back to that theme.
Everyone says social media is so bad, but once in a while, it's a force for good, right?
Indeed. And, you know, we cultivated a friendship through that. And, you know, when Vikas first told me about this story, it was, I had to know more about it because it's something that is, to me, such a universal story. From a bird's eye view, it's something that anyone can relate to, this feeling of, you know, being someone where it's never too late to fulfill a passion and a dream. And moreover, what really won me over is it's a story that would be so easy to overlook or pass over, you know, maybe even a novelty, so to speak. Someone might say, oh, did you hear this 96-year-old woman's going to first grade? Oh, that's, wow, that's, you know, and kind of pass on by. But the gift that you get from spending this time with Amma is realizing this really one of the most profound things that anyone can share at the end of this film. Someone who's, you know, in many ways been kept out of certain spaces, access to certain things, but for her, she's found something that can't be removed, that she can't be separated from deep within her. And I think that's a message that anyone can relate to. So lastly, it also makes you feel good when you watch it, which, you know, I think is not a bad thing during these times to feel after watching something too.
How was this experience different from other films that you've created or have been involved with? Because this is the first time you've done something set in India, right? And talk about sort of the differences and the different challenges that you faced, or even the different approach you might have taken to this film versus some of the others that you've done.
You know, it was really, first of all, Vikas is such a great leader. You know, I think most people in this room can attest to the energy that he just shows up with, whether it be in a room like tonight or in making a film. So for me, I was like, you know, this is the captain of the ship. He's the one that also has the deeply personal connection to this story. So for me, it was about how can I use my skill set to just support and do the best to elevate, you know, what he already, you know, understands so well. So it was a great process to be able to just fully, you know, I looked at myself as kind of like the outside eye, the kind of like, you know, objective, you know, kind of playing devil's advocate kind of role to kind of just help him see the different angles, if you will, of this project and just try to elevate what he already understood so well.
But Doug doesn't understand one thing. Our editor was in India, in Bhopal, and he says, I can't send you the files today. And Doug said, why? He's saying, because there's no electricity for the last 12 hours. He's saying, what? And I'm like, okay, we send it tomorrow. It's like, he was so moved. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, that's how we learn how to overcome adversity. Like, you think you guys are not stressed? I'm like, no. So that was funny. First time, and Ashish, like, we have to be on a call in 3 minutes. I said, Ashish will join when Ashish will join. Don't have to push him.
I will say we did a bunch of remote editing sessions where I was in Los Angeles, Vikas was in New York, and our editor, Ashish, was in India, so that was definitely new. It was always like a really unfortunate time for at least one person whenever we did that.
We don't have internet right now. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, I said, Doug, don't worry, relax. You will learn it. And that's how great art is made. We give up sometimes. And these guys were standing behind and they were not giving up. They think, no, we're going to get you the files. Don't worry, Doug.
Talk about the relationship that, so do you say Amma? Is that how you, or not? Because I was trying to figure out how to pronounce her name. Kashar, help me.
Karthiyani Amma.
Thank you. Okay, what Vikas just said. But can you talk about the relationship between the school children and her? Because I thought that was so moving, how they first sort of made fun of her, but clearly they were almost in awe of her when she did so well in school. And it must have been so much fun, but also probably like hurting cats at times to shoot those scenes in the school. Talk about what that was like, Vikas.
So the first grades were okay, the kids in the first grade. They were okay, they were still kids, a lot of innocence. It was a grade grade 4th and 5th. Those kids were very condescending because you become opinionated at that age. So one girl is telling me, oh, she stinks. And that really hurt me somehow because it feels that, as we're educating the kids, we're removing away their innocence. And these kids in the first grade were so happy initially, and they were like, oh, she's gonna not come back. Oh, she's very slow. And like they used to have these small comments. But I felt that when she started really doing so well in class, you see all the kids hugging her. Initially, I felt she was distant because she didn't have the energy of the first grade. She was a totally different student. But it was the judgmental, the whole thing came from the little kids who've developed opinions about humans, and they've been taught by society what's right and what's wrong. And of course, the parents must have told them that how can this woman be in the school? This is but these young kids were untouched by society, and was so organic in the beginning.
How many hours of footage did you all have, and how challenging was it to distill it into a 15-minute film? Because I'm sure you had to make some very hard choices. And what were your guiding principles when it came to putting this together?
I'm gonna blame him. I can make a 3-hour movie. But he found some sequences were much better. Even the kids who were singing in the class, they were reciting a poetry. Amma didn't have that kind of energy to stand up and do that. He thought that was amazing, and I did not know that was looking so great. But sometimes we were totally mutual discussion, because when Doug came on board, I saw something very uniquely sensitive around Amma. The way he will address her also in the editing, It was very respectful, and I want to credit his mom for raising him. That's what I keep telling him. I said, he's here in the crowd. Can we just, where is she? I can't see him. I said, you have done such a good job of raising this boy. The way he was respecting her, and she thinks this is great, but we need to get more of Amma. We need to get less of the priest. We need to get more. And that is why I felt that editing changed when he came on board. And I think he did a very good job, very good job.
One of the things I loved, Vikas, you said this before, and I think this was something that helped inform a lot of decisions, which was, other than setting up how hard her life was right off the top, you said, I want this to be a film that celebrates her life, that doesn't spend so much time talking about her pain. And I thought that was something that not only really helped drive a lot of choices, but I think is really the testament to this as a short piece. We have the context. We understand right off the bat that she's lived a hard life, but that this is something that's meant to ultimately make you feel empowered and inspired by what she has been able to accomplish. And I think that was really a North Star in many ways when we were making hard decisions.
I also think it was interesting how it was fairly nuanced, the connection between discriminating against women, not allowing them to go into the temple, the fact that she would sweep the temple, and sort of a symbol of female oppression in India. You didn't really hit people over the head with that. Was that a conscious decision to kind of take that footage, what had transpired, and then show her in contrast? I'm just curious.
It was very conscious decision that we have a lot of movies which put people down. Every country has problems. We are in America, we have a lot of issues here too. But I didn't want to make that issues bigger than Amma. Her heart was generosity and spirit was much larger than what these people were standing up for. She was profoundly more powerful than all these people who stood against this idea and this ideology. And I think let's celebrate that. Let's not scar that. Let's not eclipse that. Eclipse that. And I felt that that is going to dominate the theme of it. And just seeing her, just like little baby writing, there's so much of innocence in that. Let's not be those judgmental kids in the school who would berate her and not give her way sometimes as she's walking by. If she was taking a plate and these kids kind of blocked the door. And I was working and I'm like, okay, this is what society does. Society, we've been programmed like this to stop people who are moving forward like this. So I said, no, Doug. And he was like, totally good. Let's celebrate her. People get the idea. Most of the people got the idea that she was really hurt by this issue. And in the end, when teacher says that she's not doing it for herself, she doesn't want a job in Microsoft or Apple. She's not doing it for that. She's doing a much higher cause. We all have little space on this planet. She proved it to us that there's much more than people who are talking ugly and talking down on you, that you can rise above each one of them. And this is what she did. So we've just focused on that. I know a lot of people will question that.
Has she seen the film?
She hasn't seen this cut. I'm supposed to be flying to her on 28th September. And I'm very excited for her to see this cut. She's seen a previous cut, which was a rough cut because I wanted to. She was asking again and again, when is my movie coming out? And she said, it's only 15 minutes. You made me work so hard. So she thought it's going to be days of like a regular movie. But 28th or 29th September, I'll go to her with this. I've already got a big television to show her, but she now knows it's only 15 minutes. So she's upset about that part.
Typical, right? So what is the plan for the film? I mean, where do you go from here? How can people see it? Will you be in festivals? What are your plans?
We've been in a lot of festivals. We won a lot of awards. Just recently, a few weeks back, we won the Bajon Award in Japan at Short Shots. But for me, this is not, a lot of people know that, sometimes people forget I'm actually a chef. So they get like, so another movie from you? I'm like, yeah, I don't need to make movies. I don't need to prove myself in this space. I do it because there's something so profound with this. This movie celebrates girl education. It also celebrates empowerment of widows. If you know, for the last 2011, I've been fighting so hard with that there's a stigma around women who are widows. And that's one thing people do not pay attention to, that being a widow, she must have had a harder life because some people think she's inauspicious in many parts. And this is my lifelong mission and Global Fund for Widows. Heather is here, who's going to tell you. And then we also have Leap to Shine, which is committed to educate 5 million girls in India in honor of Amma. So for me, that's a movie. That's bigger than any award. And that's why I have Doug, I have all these team members here who are going to tell you that shortly that what are they doing. Because Amma became an advocate for us now. It's not somebody's just story. She's inspiring us that women should not be subjected to this life of indignity and disinheritance. And this is what we are doing as moving forward as the biggest. And Doug can tell you the other plans.
Well, again, being able to use this to support the organizations that are involved with this and the work that they do is such a privilege. And, it's something that we'll certainly be sharing in many traditional spaces, campaigning for it in award spaces and kind of all of the above, because the more people that see this film, the greater impact it'll have. And I think anyone can benefit from seeing Amma's story. So all of the above is kind of the short answer.
A woman as intelligent as Amma, if she was educated, imagine what she would have done.
Thank you all for this incredible conversation. Doug, Vikas, Katie, it's been wonderful.